So thank you so much for joining. Today's topic is, what would you do differently if you were designing your partner program today? And just generally, what are some modern partner program best practices? We have some amazing guests with us today, so I'll let them introduce themselves. So with that, Meg, do you mind introducing yourself?
I don't mind at all. My name is Meg Brennan, and I lead global partner strategy programs and partner experience at HP. So printers, laptops, ink, all of those things.
And I am Michelle Hodges. I'm the Senior Vice President at Barracuda Networks, and I lead the entire partner ecosystem globally for Barracuda.
Fantastic. And my name is Kate Kada. I'm the Managing Director of Spur Reply's ecosystem practice, and I'll have the privilege of moderating today. I've been consulting on partner strategy for the last 10 or so years and have seen and designed a lot of programs over the years, some of which I'm more proud of than others. So together we bring decades of hard-earned expertise to this discussion. So with that, we'll dive right in. Michelle, I think I'll start with you first. If you were designing your partner program from scratch today, where would you start?
It would be so different than the programs we started 20, 30 years ago. I would first really looking at how the partners are operating and delivering value and outcome to their customers. Barracuda is in a cybersecurity position. Our ICP is largely small, medium-sized customers who interact with an MSP-like partner. I say MSP-like because it is a partner that might resell licenses, might provide professional services, might provide managed services. So I would start my program from, hey, what's going to make those partners reach those customers most easily, transact with those customers most easily, and then deliver outcomes most easily. So it's based around empathy and operation. And then also that this hybridity, and people hate it when I use this word, this hybrid or this multiple routes to market of how partners operate, it's the norm. It's not the exception anymore. Partners who provide services in different modalities, who resell, who host, all sorts of things. Those aren't different tracks in a program. It's just the reality of how a partner operates.
And that's such an interesting concept today of the modern partner and how they have multiple paths in which they monetize, multiple ways in which they're adding values to customers. Michelle, how do you see being able to actually operationalize that level of hybridity within a program? What works and what doesn't around that?
Gosh, I'm sure we're going to talk about AI and technology at some point today. A lot of the answers, I think many of us who've been doing this for a while, is I would start to think about how I think about data and how I look at that customer. That I'm not thinking about it as a transaction type or as a Salesforce tag, but I am looking at it as a total entity in the data structure, and that's going to allow me to be a lot more nimble on the outside. I'm sorry if that's overly technical, but a lot of the reasons that we can't do that today is because of how the data is originally structured. And so I would spend a lot of time on that data warehouse to be sure that I could build a program and systems and technologies and operations that can approach them in that way.
It's so critical. That's the core foundation to a modern partner program. So I love that you're going there, Michelle, and hitting on that nitty-gritty piece. Meg, how about for you? If you were designing your partner program from scratch, what would you do?
I think what I would, number one, do is start with my partner value prop. So I would look at, what matters to me, what matters to partners, by what different motions. So looking at what do I want partners to do and what's going to matter to them, and vetting that value prop with the partners I'm interested in before I design any program, right? Because then I can align with partners on an outcome that is compelling to them. And then I can start to build the framework. And actually, before I would even start with a framework, I would start to think about what's the partner experience that we want to deliver. Because Michelle said empathy. I think it's the one thing that's been lacking in partner program and partner experience design, and they go hand in hand. And so if you can be empathetic with your partners about where they're at and meet them where they're at and make your program, your framework flexible, but also intuitive to them, and then deliver the experience with the underlying data. If I could start from scratch, that's what I would do.
It's you're getting at the heart of partnership, which sometimes it feels like we completely lose sight of, particularly when we're thinking about the outcomes that we want partners to drive for us. And we forget that partnership has empathy, mutual understanding, and mutual respect at the heart of it. But then I'm interested, Meg, are there ways at which you feel like you concretely can build a program to help make that more real, to convey some of that partnership ethos, even in how the program's structured?
Programs are always structured a little bit on the give to gets, right? What's the requirement? What's the benefit, right? How does that flex? And you just have to make sure that those are in the right balance so that, if you have a requirement that it doesn't feel onerous to the partner and the benefit they get feels like a reward, right? That they get tighter partnership or maybe they get a CAM to cover them or, so that you're really thinking about what they value and what you need in context. And so I think you can create that empathy if you really think about, what you need, but in the context of what will make it easy and understandable and compelling for them.
If I could add to that, we use the program word pretty broadly. The program is actually just the ultimate framework, right? There's a strategy and a culture that you're trying to formalize in a program. Outside of that, there's a whole bunch of other things that bring that to life. And whether it be partner advisory boards or partner summits and conferences, QBR cycles, all sorts of things that inject the human relation and element and feedback loops and the rest of it. Just remember that programs are not just about managing that benefits and requirements framework. It's about culture, strategy, and experience as well.
Michelle, that's a great point. I mean, at HP Amplify is our program. HP Amplify is also our partner conference, right? Everything that relates to partners, we call Amplify. So looking at it through that lens all the time, the program does one piece, but we're always looking at outside of the program, how do we build in that, relationship and the reward, the interest level.
I love how holistic that framing is. I think both of you are reflecting on this. When we think about program, it's not just this kind of dead thing, like what you see in a program guide where you have a list of requirements and a list of benefits, and that's the end all be all of a program. It's almost a whole framework for partnership, and that cultural element you've both spoken to is such a key part of that. I'm curious, as you both reflect on your programs that you manage today, and we'll take that holistically, right? What's one element that you would keep as is, that you love and have really optimized well? And then what's one element that you would potentially rethink or remove?
Sure. From keeping, Barracuda's just got a legacy, long, great partnering culture, right? Even though, I'm here to drive transitions and transformations and upgrade systems and tools and the rest of it, our partners by and large love us because of the people and the relationship we've built. So I would absolutely keep that. I would rethink, and I don't want any partners to think I'm going to do anything right away, but I would think rigid tiers, because I really do believe tiers are made for a retroactive view into a program design on a very linear delivery, logistical-oriented channel. So I'd rethink those tiers so I could look around corners and look into the future, understand where growth and investment is coming from, as opposed to who shifted the most licenses last quarter. And we're trying to do that now. And then the last thing, what would I really add is that hybrid lens. I'd do more of that hybridity stuff. I'm going to keep using the word till it's an actual word.
Hybridity. I'm stealing that. I'm going to use it.
Hey, you heard it here first. Absolutely. Nick, how about for you?
For me, I would say, one thing that I would keep that HP is two things. I'm going to say two things because I can't just say one. One thing is the innovation. So HP has been extremely innovative, introducing programs for sustainability. And we introduced a program for AI to help partners kind of ramp up to meet their customers where they are, actually sometimes outside of our technology. And partners have been really grateful for that. And they see us as a thought leader. And so that is one thing I would keep. The other thing that, Michelle said, right, the relationship, the trust. I mean, we have an ecosystem of over 300,000 partners. And, that trust and our brand trust that we have, that we're, a channel first, partner first company, not exactly our program, but I would absolutely keep that. We have to, every step we make, think about that because we can't ever lose that, brand trust that we have with our partners. Things that I would consider eliminating. So number one, complexity. And sometimes I think that tiers create complexity. So really thinking through that. We have a few tiers right now, so we don't have any plans to get rid of them. But anything that creates, too many different components in a program too many different ways of doing business gets confusing to partners. And so anything confusing, like we used to have points in our program, and it wasn't overly complex, but I found that both in this program and in a prior role, that partners found points kind of hard to deal with, which is, I think you can do them well, but you have to do them like the airlines do, right? Live, easy to drill in, understand exactly how you make points, have suggestions for how to make more points. So I think I'd be very careful about a points-based system if I couldn't really make it interactive and real.
You're the second person in 2 days who has brought that up to me.
Yeah.
So.
It's making me think about the investment requirement that goes into a really good program. And I'm jumping ahead, but like when I think about sometimes ways that we're misaligned from like our overall leadership, that's like, well, why do you need investment in XYZ? In order to make a really great points program, like be forewarned, you need to have the right operational investment, which is making me think of what you said earlier, Michelle, like to be able to see around the corners and rely less on just like stuff like tiers that is always looking at lagging indicators. We have to have that data foundation that you mentioned, like right from the start. And that in itself, again, a huge investment area that sometimes is challenging to like really champion and help others understand why that's so critical.
Yeah. And I think that can be done, not necessarily through a points program or a track. There's lots of KPI and metrics you can do if you've got the right data set to know who you want to be able to target enablement and engagement around specific areas, right? And so, if you know that there is a subset of partners with this product set who are very good at doing XYZ, you can turn on investment to those partners without necessarily needing a points program to do that. So yeah, I think that's how you keep some leveling, right? And without having to go all the way to the points. Maybe.
You make such a valid point, Michelle. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, and I'm sure you've had this experience through the years, how many people come to me and say, we want to add a special program for this subset of partners, right? And I always have to come back and say, hey, just remember, program's not always the answer, or a rebate isn't always the answer, right? To motivate partners, there's lots of things in our toolbox that aren't the program, that isn't a rebate incentive that we can do to get partners super interested. And so just reminding people that the world is bigger than the program.
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier, right? Modularity. You don't want to go out and script a program for everything, because the minute it gets out the door, it might be too late. But if you've got the toolbox that allows somebody to go and drop a 90-day rebate, or to go and run a 2-quarter sales play around a specific renewal and growth opportunity or migration, that's the type of modularity that you give to your field and to your partners to be super nimble. And then you got to point them all in the right direction. There's a lot of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll get to kind of the nimble piece later in that balance between like how dynamic can we realistically be when we're managing programs. But first, I want to talk about innovation. And this is salient because we've been talking so much about points, right? Always very buzzy. But what program innovations that are actually practical and work have you seen recently that you or your partners are most excited about? Megan, do you want to dive in first?
Sure, I can go first. I think that, one of the things that I'm super excited about and that we've been working on is ways to make the entire partner experience, including the program, more intuitive. And this is like, I could jump up and down and say AI, but it really is helping so that we don't have to have these static dashboards and make partners go look at where they are in a program and right, then they go do something, then they have to go back and look at the dashboard. We can kind of interactively say to a partner based on their, company persona and their individual persona, hey, this is a next step you might want to take. And if you do that, you could earn additional rewards, or you could develop this new business, or you could build IP for your company. And the tools that we're able to start to, that we're developing now can do that. We've had great tools that give partners data insights that might say things like, hey, here's the list of partners that are for renewal. Here's a list of partners who have outdated equipment and that won't support, Win 11. But now it takes it to the next level where I can go to an individual seller and kind of nudge them and say, hey, did you know that you have these 3 machines that your customer has? And, you could, if you sell this, you're also eligible for this seller spiff. And, and if I can get that actually off of my portal, which is maybe the next step, right? Where I can do it where they are. I just think that intuitive nature of things is like we are getting to some really cool things that are happening in programs and partner experience.
You basically stole my answer, because you can do it at the GM level or the practice owner level, all the way down to the individual, and then layer in enablement, right? So here's, to your point, you've got 3 machines that are ready to be upgraded. Well, here's your pitch. And here's, how you position it against competition. Here's some of the objections they might have, which I think is pretty fantastic. I'm going to take it one step further, that when we think about what our partners are trying to do, which is keep their customers secure, is by combining the power of everyone's platforming. Our platform is called Barracuda One, but combining the power of Barracuda One and all the insights that are delivered from that perspective of an MSP running their business with the Barracuda Partner Success Program, we're now like in the middle of their business, helping them see around the corner of security risks and opportunities to be more resilient with their customers. And so for me, that's, as a partner person, it's a dream to be at a company that's got purpose-made product for partners. So it's exciting. Yeah.
So incredible. I love these examples. And I think they just spark it's the power of the possible, right? And these are now things that we can do, that technology is opening up for us, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, we've been talking about things that have been clear wins for you both. I am curious, though, what are some things that you have tried to land that haven't necessarily worked as well as expected, or needed a little bit of tweaking after you rolled it out? And what was kind of behind that? What did you learn from those experiences?
I think that there's a few things. I could make a long list, honestly, but one of them I mentioned, points, right? So if you don't have a live interactive points experience, designing a points-based program where you batch load things once a week, once a month, isn't interactive enough. So I would say that was not as successful as I would have liked. I've also designed programs where the product wasn't partner ready. And so if you don't have a partner ready product, it's best just to know that right ahead, because the partners aren't you have to have, not just product market fit, but product market partner fit. And if you don't have that, if you're going to go to, MSP world, you have to have the right fit for MSPs. And I would say I've been in companies where that's happened, where you're like, why aren't we succeeding? We have a great program. It's super profitable. It's a rich program. We've got all the enablement. Why aren't the partners moving? It's because the product was missing something.
Yeah, so Meg, took another answer. We have a shared experience there 12, 13 years ago. We worked together for a company that had the right market fit for MSPs, but the retrofit for the product to MSPs was very difficult. And as was the service model that would have to be delivered from that perspective. And we both spent years trying to solve that problem. And I've been in a couple other instances where the channel's just so nimble, right? They're moving down this services path into managed services, and either the product or the service model is not nimble enough. And so if there's other folks in our industry who are doing what we do for jobs, really test hard before you go work somewhere if the product and the company can support your aspirations and your abilities. If you want to go and do a best of breed AI MSP model, are you in the right place to do that?
Yeah. And one thing you said just really resonated with me, which was services, right? Yeah. You have to understand how partners make money, and that their own services is how they make the most money. And so if you're at a company that assumes that resale of services, right, is going to be super successful, you often run into challenges. Sure, they will resell services in an area where it's not profitable to them, or where they're really just a fulfillment partner, which is a good kind of partner too, but you don't get the scale that if you actually really think through that services motion with partners that you could get.
Yeah. And Meg, I love that you brought that up, because it's making me think of a couple of things that are top of mind for me. Like, post-sales attribution continues to be so challenging, particularly for those service partners, right? Those transactions, those services sales, they're on partners' paper. So how do you get visibility to ensure that you understand what partners are doing incredible work driving services? Because ultimately, that's your path to account retention and expansion at scale. there's a whole powerhouse behind these service partners if we unleash them, but sometimes we're kind of putting them in the, well, do you resell box, or we think you should do these types of services. Our PS team is going to compete with you. When really, from a customer perspective, it would just be best to let partners do their thing. Yeah. And I think also consumption-based incentives, they're so challenging. I don't know any clients yet who have successfully cracked that code. So, I mean, if any of you all have answers, go find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to know. But always challenging.
Michelle answered that one.
Yeah, you just touched on so many things there. In bringing our MSPs into our overall program, we are doing some algorithms to get ACV to match MRR over time, and then putting incentives across the back of that. And then remember, we work with vendors that have boards and have shareholders sometimes that have specific goals of what we want to do for the company. And, we are very EBITDA and growth focused, very customer success focused. And so we build those goals into our program. And so measuring for MSP billings growth, right, is a pretty easy thing to measure and then incent off of as well, rather than just trying to do it across the whole consumption piece. And then you were talking a little bit about being able to understand the post-sale impact. And I would urge anybody to start now on working with your customer success team to build out a partner success motion. The tools and technologies that they are using today to understand our customer success and being built into products, work with them to take that same view, particularly with an MSP or heavy services partner, to understand where they're having success or see opportunity or see churn in their customer bases, because it's such a wonderful opportunity to drive that, grow, adopt, and renew motion over time.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to start with some baby steps. I mean, at HP, we're not historically a heavy software recurring revenue company, right? We're hardware and supplies and things like that. But so sometimes it's just the baby stuff, saying, "Hey, they got the software. Did they activate it?"
Yeah.
And what partner gets credit for that? Like, it's a one field thing. And then we can start to, reward the partners in different ways for that. Did we get a renewal, right, on service or software? Sometimes you have to start with the basics. I know that like heavy software, born in the cloud, SaaS companies have this nailed. A lot of us who come from or ad companies where this is kind of a new motion, we have to like retrofit things. And so starting small and just trying to extend into that customer success motion with a partner success motion, for us, it's challenging, but we're doing it, right? So that we can bring our partners who are, by the way, already on the journey with other companies, so that we can bring them on the journey with us. And so we can bring us on the journey with them.
Definitely. The thing I love to make about that incremental approach that you outlined is like behavioral change is so key in starting to think holistically across the life cycle and how partners can add value in so many more ways than we like currently think of them, particularly our sales teams and our customer success teams. So even having these like small interventions, that starts to trigger a mental shift in what partners can do and what value they bring to the table. So I love that. So we've been talking a little bit about kind of organizational alignment, just briefly in terms of like, is the product actually ready for partners, and making sure that there's strategic alignment in what we're driving and laddering up to corporate priorities. But I'm curious to hear from you both, and maybe Michelle dive in first. Like, have you run into any common misconceptions over the years, like misalignment between like the overarching company and versus like the program and what you drive? And what does getting it right look like? How do you drive greater alignment between your goals as the partner team and leading the program?
I mean, there's many examples. My favorite example is when somebody says to me, "Well, distribution adds no value." Well, do you have a plan with them? Have you enabled them? Have you told them what you need them to do for what you're paying them to do? Have you measured that? Have you then reviewed that? Have you invested in that by taking other resources away from that and applying to their success, right? So this concept that a partner's just going to show up and add value without the reciprocal investment is always been very, very challenging, right? And so for me, that's super plain speak, right? But what do we do as leaders to get out there? And you mentioned something, Kate, is getting into that all the way across the life cycle of a customer and helping educate internally and engage and align and collaborate with all of those functions across the business. So whether it is the transaction or a post-sales motion or a lead generation motion or lead conversion, really getting literate around what that value is. Sometimes you'll hear us use the word value agreement, which means, what are we compensating them on, and what's the value we're getting in return, and then getting a buy-off with that function that they're going to engage in that process. But yeah, what did the partner do for me lately is the thing you hear a lot. What did you do for them?
So true. I love the value agreement as an extension of value exchange. We talk about that a lot, but that actual mutual commitment component behind the value agreement, that's so powerful.
Yeah, I would add, and I think it's definitely related, is that adding a new route to market will solve all problems.
Or another distributor.
Let's add another kind of distributor. Let's add more distributors. Let's add new types of partners.
I need 1,000 new partners in this country.
Yeah, without really getting to kind of knowing why what is Simon Sinek, right? The 5 whys. I use that all the time. Why? Because you have to drill down to say, hey, what's the real outcome we're trying to seek? And then is what you're suggesting going to get us to that outcome? Because it may or may not. Like giving a 0.01% rebate on a new product a partner's never heard of, I go to the extreme, and a new partner type, perhaps, so somebody you haven't even worked with on that product before, there can be a misconception that will deliver success, and it never will.
The most extreme example, Meg, I kid you not, I still remember encountering a mini incentive program that had just lived on for a couple of years. That funding pool was so small that the resource it cost to run that program was more than the entire incentive pool, of which the incentive pool was only like 50% utilized. Like we do that to ourselves. So
we have to look at that every quarter and say what's happening in both our local and our programs that isn't delivering value, so that we can realign.
Absolutely. Which I think leads so well into the next piece, which is like that balance between stability and ongoing optimization and innovation. How do you both think about that? Meg, do you mind just diving in since you're just chatting?
Sure. So I think that, in general, you want your partner experience to feel really stable, and you want kind of your program framework to feel very stable so that partners understand kind of the high level, how it works. And when you introduce something new or change something, they understand where it fits and what you're asking them to do. And so, we don't make changes very often to our program. We make, usually like one big change a year, maybe some small changes like we have to tweak, rates and things like that. But we really try not to change more than twice a year so that there's as much stability as possible in that partner experience. And when we change our partner experience, right, we're pretty clear about the MOC and how do we enable every internally months in advance. And, you can imagine when we're trying to get out to so many partners, like it just has to be intuitive. We can't create anything that's partners have to think about.
Yeah, I would answer exactly the same. You want to have a program that's based in stable fundamentals. I'm in the business of partner transformation and helping companies like up-level their channels. And I'm still not a fan of, it's a big relaunch or we're going to launch a new program. I think cleaning up programs to make sure that they're stable, they offer value, they're focused on joint success, and then, clear runway for experimentation and innovation and adding value over time, and constant communication with your partners in a way that they know where you're going, right? So that when they do get a rebate or when they do get a new program feature, that it's in context of that value agreement that you set out on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now I want to tie back to partner experience a little bit, because we've been talking about this as a theme throughout. And you've both given incredible examples of some of the ways you're innovating your partner experience and also how central that is to a partner program. What are some of the guiding principles that you both keep in mind when you think about designing a modern and high quality partner experience?
I would say, number one, just remind yourself that partners don't wake up in the morning going, I can't wait to go to their portal. I can't wait to navigate those PDF files and try to figure out their tools and how HP's tools are different from Barracuda. Like, they do not wake up in the morning with that on their plan, right? They wake up in the morning wanting to sell something, right? To deliver value to their customers, to deliver value to their companies. And that's where they're centered. And so we have to think about how do we fit into their day, not how do they fit into our day.
Again, I would, lead with empathy and connection. Remember that there's actual people on either end of these the solutions. I design for kind of hybrid or multi-route to market models and customer choice. We talk a lot about, hey, we got to be where the customer is, and so enable the partners to be able to fulfill that customer demand as to the best of your ability. You hear me talk a lot about simplify aggressively. So, keep it simple. We said that out in the beginning. And what I think by what partners win by reducing, overall risk and complexity by leaning into programs, everyone wins, right? If you're doing it correctly, right? So if you're focusing on, for us, reducing risk, reducing complexity in their tool sprawl, but then also delivering value growth. Hopefully, that's the type of modern partner ecosystem where everyone wins.
The power of simplicity. I know that's been a theme throughout our conversation, but subtraction is hard, but wow, does it really help? Particularly when thinking about the life of a partner. And I love, Meg, that you grounded us there and just think about what it means to wake up and be a partner. They're working with multiple vendors. If you are the vendor who is the absolute easiest to work with, who feels really just simple and intuitive to do business with, that's a powerful competitive differentiator. And a thoughtfully designed partner experience is such a key means of landing that for your partners at scale. All right. So next to last question, what advice would you give to a partner leader who is either redesigning or for the first time building their partner program? Now, I know, Michelle, that you had said don't want to redesign all the time, but do you mind just diving in? What would you advise?
Ultimately, you're receiving a paycheck and you work for a company and a corporation and a board that has goals and objectives. And so getting super clear on what those are and where the partners deliver that. So if it's rule of 40 and efficiencies, that means we know partners can generate new logos and they can convert opportunities, they can grow customers faster than a sales force. So if it's reach, if it's efficiency or whatever, figure out what those core components are that you're trying to optimize for in your partner strategy, and then match that, right? So if it's growth, I need to drive for growth. Can you match that to your partner's ability to drive growth, and can you invest in that proactively? And so, again, we've talked about it several times. What's the sweet spot? What does your company need to do? What are your partners doing successfully? And what are the customers' outcomes that are required? And then match them all together.
Meg, how about for you?
I would say, start with being super clear on what the partner's role is with the customer and where they add value to the customer. Because if you don't know that, you can't design a program. You can't even validate whether a program is a good program or not. So I would start there. And then I would really think about, you're going to design your program for those outcomes, but you're going to design the experience for your partners, not for your internal teams. So often we add layers of requirements and complexity because this team or that team, or it'll be easier for us to do it this way or that way, but it's harder for the partners and we put work on them. And I think that the more work you put on your partners in your program, the less time they have selling your products or delivering the service that will add value to your customer experience.
As a stakeholder, we're the partner advocates. And I love that's centering on that, Meg. Any final words of wisdom? Anything we didn't cover off on from either of you?
Yeah, I'm a big dork about my profession, and what a time to be alive, right? In this, with the tools, technologies, the expertise, so many of us have grown up together, and yeah, it's a fun time to be in the channel.
I would 100% agree. I am leaning in on AI as my thought partner constantly.
As a collaborator, which is my favorite thing about it.
Yeah. As a program person, right? I don't have to think of everything. I have a design partner who knows what every program in the world looks like, right? And who could maybe help me think about what cutting edge looks like and what the technology is that could support that. It's super exciting right now, and it's moving fast. And I think that we're going to need to build up more and more expertise in those people who know what the channel is, know who the partners are, what they do, and what they value. I think that for people to build that expertise is the number one most important thing, because then they can use tools. Like, I think we have more program designers than we ever had if they know the partner well.
They've got domain expertise. Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent spot to land. Michelle, Meg, thank you so much for your incredible insights. This has been such a rich conversation. Really looking forward to the next time we connect. But until then, thank you.
Thank you. And it's always nice to spend some time with Michelle, because she's always been one of my inspirations. So
I have learned so much in this conversation. And it's just been incredible.
I know anything I know. Oh, gosh. Most things I know about making sure your program is operationally feasible comes from Meg. So
we learned a lot from each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the great minds.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, thank you
Kate.
so much.
Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.